Imagine if tomorrow, American forces just vanished from Europe. No more US air power, no more American logistics, no nuclear umbrella. For 70 years, the United States has been Europe's ultimate insurance policy. Without it, the European Union would face the most dangerous security test in its modern history. The question becomes brutally simple. Could the EU stop Russia alone? On paper, the EU looks untouchable. It has a population of over 440 million people, an economy many times larger than Russia's, advanced fighter jets, modern tanks, and sophisticated navies. But wars aren't won on spreadsheets. They're won by readiness, cohesion, production speed, and the ability to absorb shock in the first days of a conflict. Russia has been operating under wartime pressure for years. Europe has not. So, if Moscow pushed west without American backing, would Europe stand firm, or would its political fragmentation become its greatest vulnerability? Let's break this down strategically, not emotionally. Before we even talk about weapons or budgets, geography decides everything. A war between the EU and Russia wouldn't happen evenly across the continent. It would erupt at specific pressure points: the Baltic states, eastern Poland, Finland's long border, and maybe the Black Sea corridor. Russia has the advantage of proximity. It can concentrate its forces quickly near its borders, its supply lines are shorter, and its internal movements are centralized. The European Union, on the other hand, is a collection of 27 different states. Forces have to be coordinated and moved across multiple borders. The first 72 hours wouldn't be about total power. They'd be about who moves first. If Russia achieved rapid territorial gains, even limited ones, it could create political shockwaves across Europe. And political shock travels much faster than tanks. Now let's look at the people. Collectively, EU member states have about 1.6 to 1.8 million active military personnel. If you add in the reserves, Europe could mobilize several million more if needed. Russia operates with around 1 to 1.2 million active troops, but it has substantial reserves and mobilization systems that have already been tested in a real, prolonged conflict. So on pure numbers, Europe has an advantage. But here's the catch: those EU forces are divided. They have different command structures, different languages, different equipment, and different levels of readiness. Russia operates under a single, centralized authority. In the opening phase of a war, speed of command can be more important than total manpower. If Europe reacts as 27 individual armies instead of one coordinated force, its numerical advantage gets watered down. So while the EU has the scale, Russia has the cohesion. What about money? The European Union collectively spends way more on defense than Russia does. Germany has boosted its defense budget, France maintains high-end military capabilities, and Poland is rapidly expanding its forces. In total, Europe's financial resources dwarf Russia's. But here's the critical distinction. Russia allocates a far greater share of its entire economy to defense. Its industrial base has already shifted to wartime production. Ammunition factories are running 24/7. Equipment losses are being replaced under emergency schedules. To put it simply, Europe is wealthy, but Russia is mobilized. In a short war, what matters most are the stockpiles you have right now and your readiness to fight. In a long war, industrial power becomes the deciding factor. If Europe fully mobilized its massive economic base, its production capacity could eventually overwhelm Russia. But mobilization is a political decision, not an automatic one. And political hesitation costs precious time. Modern war is often decided in the sky, and this is where Europe has serious capability. France has its Rafale fighters with real combat experience. Germany, Italy, and Spain operate the Eurofighter. Several EU nations are now flying the advanced F-35. Combined, EU countries have hundreds of advanced combat aircraft. Russia also has a large air force, with fighters like the Su-35 and Su-30, along with strategic bombers. However, Russia has invested heavily in air defense systems designed to deny access to its airspace, rather than seeking total air dominance. So, if Russia tried to push into EU airspace, Europe's integrated air defenses and advanced fighter fleet would likely give it the edge. But if the EU tried to conduct deep offensive strikes into Russian territory, the costs and risks would rise dramatically. Defensively, Europe's air power is formidable. Offensively, it's a much tougher game. At sea, Europe also holds significant strength. France operates an aircraft carrier, and both Italy and Spain have capable fleets. European submarine forces are technologically advanced and very quiet. In open waters like the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, European navies would dominate. But in more confined areas like the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea, Russia's proximity gives it key advantages. So while Europe's overall maritime strength is greater on a global scale, Russia can effectively contest control in its own backyard. This brings us to the nuclear question. The European Union does not have a unified nuclear arsenal. Within the EU, only France possesses nuclear weapons. Russia, on the other hand, maintains one of the largest nuclear arsenals in the world. If the United States were to withdraw its nuclear guarantee, Europe's deterrence would depend almost entirely on France. Politically, France would likely extend that protection to all EU member states, but nuclear credibility is all about perception. Russia's nuclear doctrine is centralized and expansive. France's arsenal is smaller, though modern. The existence of nuclear weapons on both sides likely prevents a full-scale, total war. But it doesn't stop limited conventional aggression that stays below the nuclear threshold. And that gray zone is where most modern conflicts happen. Wars are rarely decided in a week. They're decided over months and years. And in a long-term conflict, Europe's industrial base is immense. We're talking about advanced manufacturing, world-class aerospace industries, technological innovation, and incredible logistics networks. If fully mobilized, Europe could outproduce Russia in advanced weapons and sustain its forces for the long haul. But again, the challenge is transitioning from peacetime production to wartime urgency. That requires immense political will and causes major economic disruption. Russia has already made that difficult transition. Europe has not. If Europe adapts quickly, its economic weight could become the decisive factor. If it hesitates, Russia could capitalize on its early momentum. This leads us to the most uncomfortable reality of all. The European Union is economically integrated, but it is not militarily unified. There is no single EU army. Decision-making requires coordination among 27 different governments, each with its own threat perceptions, domestic politics, and sense of urgency. Russia doesn't have this problem. In the first days of a conflict, unity of purpose is what determines resilience. If Europe responds as one, its combined strength is truly formidable. But if it fractures politically, Russia gains a massive strategic advantage. So, could the European Union defend itself alone against Russia? In a short, sudden conflict, Russia's centralized command and mobilized wartime posture create very real risks for Europe. In a prolonged conflict, however, Europe's economic scale, advanced air power, and deep industrial base would likely shift the balance in its favor. The outcome really depends on three things: the speed of Europe's response, its political unity, and its ability to mobilize its industry. Europe is not weak, but strength without cohesion can easily falter. Russia is not stronger economically, but it is hardened and prepared by sustained conflict. If Europe acts decisively and collectively, it absolutely has the resources to defend itself. But if it hesitates, the balance of power could shift very, very quickly. In modern warfare, the first 30 days can shape the next 30 years, and that is the real strategic equation facing Europe today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to follow for more analysis like this.